G'day, and welcome back to the 40 channel. So today we're going to marry the gearbox and the transfer case back together. It should be a fairly quick and short video. It's only the small detail bits and pieces left to put these things back together and all the linkage. Anyway, let's get straight into it and see how we go doing this on my own. No jack today. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our gasket on. Now, if you've been watching me, you know me well enough to know that I always use gasket sealant. Now, there's a couple of reasons I use gasket sealant. One, well, it just gives me that guarantee that I know that the seal is going to be there. But two, trying to put your gasket on, you just can't get it to stay in the right spot. So it actually helps hold the gasket in place while you're trying to put everything back together again, making everything just that little bit easier. And if you can make anything easier, well, that's what we're all about. So as always, we're going to be using the Chemtool's Rapid Stick, the gasket sealant, 8518. Now look at that. Now my gasket is not going to move, it's going to stay exactly where I want it to stay. Righto, so we've got a lip seal in our main side where our gearbox mounts up to. And we've got our bearing in the other side. Now we've got to push that bearing in all the way so that it is flush with the inside. And that will make all our spacers. So we've got a spacer, we've got our PDO gear, another spacer, and then our main drive gear. Our main drive gear, we're going to drop that in. What I'm going to do, I'm going to mesh that up with the gears, and we're going to push it through this lip seal, just so it protrudes, just like that. Right, this is where it gets a bit tricky. I want to slide through my shaft into our main gear. Before we go too far, then we'll slide our spacer on, then our PDO gear, and then finally the last spacer. I'm going to try to film this best we can. Let's put our spacer in. Then we should be able to put our PDO gear in. We'll push that back just a fraction. Now holding all that gear set in place, I know my hand's going to be in the way when I do this. We just want to push that through. Now put our last spacer on the inside. Now I've noticed that looking through a lot of different manuals, whoops, we're going to drop that spacer, aren't we? This is where the magnet on the stick comes very handy. Now I've noticed with a couple of different manuals and stuff that I've looked at, there's some different spacing systems set up, and some people have deleted the PDO gear altogether, so they have just one main spacer going in here, and that's fine if you're never going to have a PDO. And to be honest, I probably won't ever have a PDO either. Now I've got the transfer case supported on a block of wood just to give it that bit more height. Then we can press all that in place. Checking out to make sure all our gears mesh correctly and that everything spins nicely. Right, now we've got it all together and all meshed up. Now we need to sort of lift, turn our gearbox, and we've got our two short bolts which bolt in from the inside and then 3 bolts from the outside. So just lift that up into position. Once we've got it lined up, throw in 2 bolts. Right, our 3 long bolts. Now actually what I found was between the early 1965 version to a 70s version, they actually have a different thread. So yeah, we pulled 2 different boxes apart, but you got to be careful because some of the threads are different. So we've got a really fine thread, looks like a 1mm pitch, and the other one's a 1.5 pitch. Right, our spacer, locking washer. The marriage has happened. So all we need to do now is put all the linkage components back on it, drop the gear stick in from the top, and then we can move on to rebuilding the rear brake assembly. So it's coming up pretty sweet actually. But anyway, first thing we need to do, now I've got all the components here laid out. I've actually already started to build some of this stuff off camera, so I'll give you a bit of a quick look at that so you know which way bits and pieces have got to go. Right, if you remember, we had to heat this up and give it an absolute flogging with a slide hammer to get it off. That was all because the grease nipple in here that it hadn't been greased for a long time, it was all bound up. So we've got a brand new grease nipple. I'm going to screw that straight into the bottom of the linkage assembly. Just like that. And to give it a head start, we're going to cover all this in Molytac grease. We've cleaned up our pivot roller. We've put a bit of Molytac on the back of that. We can slide that into there as well. Slide our assembly on. We'll line up our pivot roller into the bottom of the shaft there. Selector arm. Drop that linkage into there. This linkage arm into there. Drop our support bracket onto there. That'll be better. 2 nuts up at the top here. Righto. A washer and a split pin through each one of these. So we'll put the split pin this way. Last thing to do is just do up our bolt here, just to clamp that onto place. 2-wheel drive at the moment. Now we're in 4 high. We can spin this and with the back of it spinning, and 4 low. Now something really cool is that a previous owner or someone that was bored in the Bushfire Brigade decided that they weren't quite sure what gear they might have been in. So they went to a lot of effort and someone has engraved in what gear they're in. So the really cool thing is I spent a fair bit of time cleaning all this up, and I thought I'd pay homage to whoever had done that at some stage and clean it up and keep it. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to throw that up on the top. Our gearbox is rebuilt, our transfer case is rebuilt, and all our linkage has all been cleaned up and rebuilt. This is pretty much done, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Only thing we've really got to do left is on the back end here is we've got our brakes to do. So our handbrake or our emergency brake, or really it doesn't really do much at all unless we set it up absolutely perfect. But history with these things is not always great. But I'm really happy with the way this has all come up. The only thing I wish I'd done was maybe get the case vapor blasted just to give it a cleaner and nicer look. But realistically, cleaning it up the way that I've done it has worked out okay. And we really didn't have the time or the availability to go and do that at that point of time. Anyway, it all goes up underneath the cab, so no one's really going to see it. It's only what you guys see now and how it presents itself now. So I'm really happy with it, and hopefully this has been a bit of a helpful guide to you guys that wanted to do any components of your gearbox or your transfer. So guys, that's it for this video. So yeah, you may have seen that I've got my 40 channel shirt on, my 40 channel hat on. There's a whole lot of different colors and ranges that they all come in. You can get bucket hats and caps and singlets and jumpers and hoodies and stickers and mugs and all sorts of stuff. But anyway, if you're keen to own any of that 40 channel merch, jump onto reefmonkey.com and it's all available there. And I really appreciate all you guys that have continued to support us so far. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for all your emails. It's been absolutely awesome, and it's so good to hear people's stories about their 40s. I love to hear people's stories about where they got their 40 from, the history of it, and what they've done to rebuild it. So keep that stuff coming. I love it. I'm going to try to bring more of that back into the inspiration side of things and share other people's builds as we go along in future, hopefully. Anyway guys, that's it. And until next time, take care of yourselves.